Thank you so much for joining me this morning and allowing me to pick your brain for your insights and experiences. That being said, should I dive into the first question?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
What is it like working in a male-dominated field? What challenges have you faced and how have you approached them?
It's a deep question. So prior to sports, I actually was in tech. So I was with Microsoft and Google and Facebook. And then I was also in gaming with Xbox. So this is the third time that I've entered into a I seem to like them, actually. The third time I've been in a male-dominated field. And to be quite honest, initially I was taken aback a little, I have to say. There were, the conversations in the room were a little bit different. And I had to become comfortable with bringing my full self and sharing my ideas the way that's authentic to me. And that took a little bit of time, not much, because you don't have a lot of time to a runway to get to that point, but it's been rewarding for me. Each of those fields, especially now sports, you have an opportunity to change the narrative and also impact the way others approach the industry as well. And so that's been really good for me.
Oh, that's really admirable. I actually have a funny tidbit about the Xbox story. My brother, as it goes, teenager, is obsessed. And my mom was so fed up, she threw it out the window.
No. Tell him I can get him another one.
Oh my God.
I still get my Microsoft discount.
He's going to be ecstatic. So the Xbox did not fare well, but yeah. I guess I'll segue into the next question. What were your experiences with sports growing up? What made you want to get involved in DC United?
Yeah, so funny, I started in karate. Karate's considered a sport still, right? Okay. I started in karate and transitioned into basketball and track. I went to an all-girls high school, so everything around the school was around sports and activities and learning about the team concept. And so for me, when I was younger, that is the part that I remember through high school, and then I played a year in college, is that the ability to be able to work with individuals who are all bringing a different perspective, but all have a different purpose in the team. And, a lot of times we're all very competitive, smart, and everybody has their own ideas. And so what sports did was allow me and those around me to see how you can work with individuals who are all bringing that same brilliance to the table, and to be able to figure out when to step forward and when to slide into the gap. Right, and that's so impactful in your lives and everything that you're doing in school and all of the work that you're doing outside. Is that sometimes that brilliance has to show itself in different places, in different spaces, right? And so for me, that's what sports was. I enjoyed it. I still do. I ended up marrying someone who was in tech, and then he became a college basketball coach. So college basketball is a big part of my household now, and then I have all three of my kids play something.
Oh, that's awesome. I also went to an all-girls school, so it's just really nice to have the privilege to be like the priority in sports because you're not having to compete like with the boys and like them being the priority and I guess like fun cuts. So it's nice to like have to relate on that. Also, my basketball career was cut short. C team, they tryouts first day. They told everyone line up from shortest to tallest, and you can tell where I fell on that line.
Yeah. Mine was cut short in college. If I sat the bench the first year that I played, just so we're all clear.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Tell us about your average day. What does your daily routine look like as a chief marketing officer for DC United?
Yeah, I'm really focused and having an edge, right? So I wake up, even coming here, I didn't go into the office first, but my first thing was reading about what is going on in the world and then also the industry. And so I spend a good 30, 45 minutes looking at that. And then I'm very data driven. So then I always pull up numbers to look at how our business is doing. I oversee not just from a fan engagement, ticketing sales, but also merchandise sales, our community involvement. There's just a number of things, and all of that comes into the ROI for the team, which you'll learn more. That's the focus of a lot of sports teams. And so I really dive into the numbers. And then I spend a lot of time trying to pull together very authentic stories, right? And so how can I get people to connect with us in a way that makes sense for them? And every person is going to have a different connection and inflection point. And so I spend a lot of time during the day with that, and then also looking at for unique ways outside of what people are typically doing in sports to get people engaged and connected to our team.
Yeah, it sounds like you're multitasking down to a T.
Yes. Some people believe you can't multitask. I beg to differ.
You're verse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also love that you try to humanize the people's stories that you're telling.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. What do you believe is the greatest challenge facing women in sports today? What are some ways these challenges are uniquely experienced by women of color and or trans women?
I don't think we have enough time for this question. One is lack of funding. And so if you look at dollar for dollar, what is invested in women's sports versus male-dominated sports or men's sports, you're looking at, on average, a 50% deficit, if not more, right? And then you look at the fact that there's a pay equity issue, especially when you talk about professional sports and now in college athletics, what they call name, image, and likeness, which is collegiate athletes getting compensation for their image and likeness. And so because they don't make the same amount, most female athletes will have to take on a second job in addition to their sport. So they can't spend the same amount of time with their craft, becoming better, stronger, et cetera, because they can't afford to. And then you look at the lack of interest and or airtime on a number of different outlets, whether it's radio, TV, digital publications, print. So now I'm gonna tell you a story because I'm a storyteller. So if I say that a lot of this is based on revenue, because that's what people will tell you, that women's sports, the investment, the airtime, the pay is based on the fact that they don't generate the same amount of dollars, well then think back from a marketer's perspective. The reason is if you start with the content, so start at the end, if they're not getting the airtime, then people don't know who the athletes are. They can't develop a connection with them, so they're not gonna follow them. They're not gonna buy their jerseys. They're not gonna attend the games. So then you have a decrease in ticketing sales and revenue. And then that correlates to what? Pay equity, because you're not generating the same amount of revenue, so I can't afford to pay the athletes the same amount. And so between male and female athletes, especially in some of the highest revenue generating sports, it's not a 50%, it's more like 70% difference.
That's really insightful to see the underlying reasons why women's success in sports isn't guaranteed.
Yeah.
And I guess that definitely compels me to action to fight through that and like schedule when they're coming on and support my local teams and whatnot. Yes. But would you rather do one more question or a call to action? I think we only have time for one more.
I could do one question and a call to action.
Okay. How did you prepare yourself for this work? How would you recommend others get involved?
So for me, I always took on the things that most people would not. So when the opportunities hit the table and everybody questioned whether or not it could get done, I was usually the one that took the risk. So I'll say first, I'll say I'm a measured risk taker. I go after the things that I believe can get done that other people, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. And I know a lot of you are seeing that in a lot of the work that you're doing now. And so that's the second thing, of the willingness there. The last thing is that I'm willing to be a consistent learner, right? So I'm a consistent student of everything, even though I've kind of been around, as people will say. I'm constantly learning and learning from the people around me, learning from, third parties. I'm open to everything, and I'm honest about what I don't know. So
I'm glad we have you as a role model in like a male-dominated domain to look up to when things get rough. But do you think we should do one more question or call to action?
Yes, so call to action is please, support. There are a lot of stories out here about female athletes that are trying to make a difference, not only in their community, but in the sport as a whole. Even if you just take one of those stories and retweet them, share them on Instagram. I know nobody's on Facebook anymore. But even if you put them on TikTok, just being able to share that story, if one person does it and all of you in the room just, share one story, we're able to get more information out about those individuals. So,
thank you for sharing your insights. That was awesome. Thank you so much.